Episode 174 of CppCast with guest Devon Labrie, recorded November 6, 2018. This episode of CppCast is sponsored by Backtrace, the turnkey debugging platform that helps you spend less time debugging and more time building. Get to the root cause quickly with detailed information at your fingertips. Start your free trial at backtrace.io/CppCast. In this episode, we discuss Herb Sutter's pre-San Diego trip report. Then we talk to Devon Labrie. Devon talks to us about his experience learning C++ at Augusta Tech and being a first-time attendee at CppCon. Welcome to episode 174 of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I'm your host, Rob Irving, joined by my co-host, Jason Turner. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm all right, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm fine. You want to tell everyone where you are right now?
At the moment, I'm in Austria, so pardon if there's any echo. I think there probably is some. This is a basement with walls that are about 2 feet thick, so I'm not getting great connection here, and it's definitely a bit of an echoey space, but I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, hopefully I can clean that up in post. But you're there for some training, right?
Yeah, doing 3 days of training here, and I tweeted this out a few days ago. It'll be too late by the time this episode goes live, but I'm giving a lecture at the university tomorrow night as well here in Graz, Austria.
Oh, okay, so that's for anyone who is in the area can attend that.
Yeah, could have, but again, it would be too late by the time you hear this, so we'll see what happens.
Very cool. Well, at the top of every episode, I'd like to read a piece of feedback. This week, we got a tweet from Pete Taylor, and he's actually responding to a post that Kate Gregory sent out over the summer when we had her on, saying, I always love listening to Kate Gregory. I think she has a positive influence on the community on many different levels, which I definitely agree with. Her, CppCon keynote was great, and I need to watch her Pacific++ talk, which I think might be out now, right?
I believe it is. Phil did a pretty good job of getting this out pretty quick. He also doesn't have a huge conference, so it's less to process and whatever.
Right. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the show as well. You can always reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or email us at feedback@cppcast.com. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. Joining us today is Devon Labrie. Devon is a 26-year-old coming from a military family. He enjoys challenges physically and mentally, playing video games and creating them, learning, watching TV, puzzles, art, science, comedy, philosophy, programming, and of course, C++. Devon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we will definitely, in the interview, talk to you more about how you got interested in C++ and stuff, but I'm kind of curious, what kind of puzzles and games have you been creating lately?
Well, some of the games I've been able to create, I actually took some classes online, and I was able to learn Timber and over 9,000 zombies. And a lot of that, was just kind of teaching me the flow of how games are usually designed, using the SFML. That's okay. So that's how I kind of got in the beginning stages of creating video games by learning how to create games that's already been made that are actually on Steam as of now. And from those concepts, I'm trying to, do my own projects and start my own.
Very cool. That's, I feel like for me personally, the actual flow of how a game is executed felt like a mystery for decades until I'm you know what, I have to sit down and try to make one of these things and understand what happens in a frame and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Like learning about how to, do a render screen, because that's something when I first started, I started programming, I didn't really understand okay, yeah, we're doing Hello World, we're doing a lot of things that we can see, actual words on the screen, and we can display, see out, and everything. But I could not figure out, like, how do we actually get like a graphical, user interface, or just like something we can see like a render screen. And through SFML, I learned how you can, you can have a video mode, and through the video mode, you set up your parameters of how the resolution of the screen is, and then from there, you kind of, when I first learned that, I was like, oh wow, so now I know how to actually put a screen up, and from there, it just of course there's tons of things from there, but dealing with sprites and everything, usually I learned that all on Udemy, excuse me.
Very cool.
Yeah, I get the impression from you same kind of thing I feel like when you like open up a graphics window and you're like, I'm going to put a pixel there, and sometimes it seems so silly. You're like, there is a blue dot right there, and I made that blue dot.
Yeah.
So, Devon, we have a couple news articles to discuss. Feel free to comment on any of these, and then we'll start talking more about how you got into C++, okay?
All right.
Okay, so the first one we have is common package specification. And this is a article kind of describing this common package spec, which is written in JSON. And I guess it's somewhat similar to package config, and I believe this is something that's kind of going through the committee. Is that right, Jason?
I don't know about whether or not it's going through the committee.
I think there's a paper related to this.
Perhaps. I was looking at the schema specifically, and I'm like I see that it's got like specific flags for which version of C are you using, which version of the common language runtime are you using, which version of Java are you using, what compile flags are required, what version of C++ are you using. And I started to think, this is an infinitely large thing. Like, why did they stop at the JVM and the CLR? Why not what version of Rust C is required?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is a proposal related to this, but it definitely seems like it's something we're going to need if we are going to have, something related to package management in the official, C++ standard. I think it might look something like this, right?
I think it would kind of have to, yeah. But I don't know how big it would have to be.
Right. Devon, did you have a chance to look at this?
Yeah, I looked it over a little bit. Some of the biggest things. Like I said, I have not touched this. Dealing with packages. Actually, when I went to CppCon, I was actually talking with the package manager for Microsoft, trying to figure out how to deal with it. And he said, with me being so new, to programming in general, he said that's something you should probably just wait to get a hang of. But looking at this, like I wrote some things down. Like it looked like are these like with the imports and exports? It says something about that you could be able to put these with any of your any of your functions. But I mean, is that the export import? Like I said, I haven't dealt with it, but are these typical things that are in the syntax when dealing with packaging?
So function exports. I don't know exactly where you're looking on here. I was just trying to find, but function exports in libraries in Unix, generally speaking, are by default everything is globally exported. And if you link in a library, you have access to all the things. But with Visual C++, you have to explicitly choose what things are exported in a library.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is definitely, I'd say, not a standard on how those things currently work. So having some way of specifying those would probably be necessary too.
Okay. I know it's talking about modifying your source code, and modifying the dependency graph and all your sort of all your ways to let you focus on code rather than on translation units and build systems. And I was following that, and I was kind of like, is this sound like an upfront cost with modules to build your projects to other projects with CMake? Because it was talking about how every time if you change anything with these modules, you have to constantly go back and have to redo everything with CMake and with your Chrome code bases.
Right. Yeah.
So y'all may be familiar with that, but that's totally new to me. So
And this whole, and more modules come in, is still so many unknowns at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and since we're talking about modules a little bit, the other article we have is about modules, and it's headlined, "Modules are not a tooling opportunity." And I think this is in relation to a different post saying how C++ modules are a tooling opportunity. And the post is basically just saying, it's not that easy. You can't just say, hey, we're going to have modules and magically expect you're going to get much better tools out of the C++ community. It's not going to be an easy task to get better tools when modules come out.
Yeah, and looking at this one, I'm I felt so disheartened by it. I'm like, never mind. We don't need modules.
I mean,
okay, I have to apologize about that.
No, go ahead.
That was actually my notes for this module. I apologize about that.
It's okay.
That's all right. No problem. Yeah.
But I think the author does say that he is still excited about modules himself. He just thinks the tooling problem is going to be hard to solve. Right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I mean, it's the same kind of things that we've seen, Izzy talking about. Are we going to have to recompile everything so that we know what to compile?
Right.
And I don't feel like I understand all of the intricacies of this, but it doesn't look nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how far along modules get this week. We're recording this while the San Diego ISO meetings are going on. They sounded hopeful going into those meetings when they brought it up at CppCon, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
And speaking of the San Diego meeting that's going on right now, we have a pre-trip report from Herb Sutter, and this is pretty interesting. He is highlighting how there's a record number of both papers and attendees for San Diego. And because of that, they've decided to make 2 additional study groups, a evolution working group incubator and a library evolution working group incubator. And I guess all these new papers are going to kind of have to get filtered through those incubators instead of just going straight to EWG or LEWG and just kind of flooding and overwhelming those groups and having nothing get accomplished.
Yes.
I mean, it seems kind of necessary with the amount of papers and people that are going to be at this meeting.
Yeah, and there's supposed to be basically pre-processing, pipelining the deal. So the incubators will check to see if something is worth sending off to the regular evolution groups.
Right, and also if there's several features that are kind of similar, then they can try to combine those and get a combined paper before putting it onto the full, working group.
Yeah. And I have you seen that there's an LEWG Twitter handle?
No, I don't think I have.
I saw
active this week.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, have they been active this week?
I don't know. I haven't been paying that close attention. I just saw that they were following me at first.
Okay.
And then if you click on it, you see that it says pronounced Loogie.
Really?
And that's just terrible.
Yeah.
And now
I'm going to continue saying LEWG.
Yes. And now having looked at it, at this paper from Herb, I see that it's Bryce who is the chair of LEWG. So it seems all slightly more clear now.
Well, I think Bryce is the chair of the LEWG incubator.
Yes, that one, right.
Yeah, okay.
So was it the incubator or not that followed me? No, I don't remember.
And JF Bastion is going to be the in charge of the EWG incubator.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's actually something that stood out to me in this article. And sorry, Devon, did you read this? Did you have any comment on it before I continue?
No, I don't.
Okay. Herb here says, In general, all participants are encouraged to consult P0939, the Directors Group Suggestions. This is our direction group. This is the group that is setting the overall direction for where C++ is headed. It has 5 members of it, and there is a rotating board of directors. It says Bjarne lost the random number draw, so he is the chair for 2018. So he lost, so he gets to be the chair. But this starts out by saying that they were asked recently at a standards committee meeting who all has read The Design and Evolution of C++. And let's see, Titus Winters asked this in 2017. Only about a quarter of the hands went up. Assuming that another quarter was shy or distracted, that indicates that half of the committee had never read the articulation of key design principles and decisions for C++. So it says part of the reason is that copies of Design and Evolution are hard to find. So they have opened it up, or Bjarne has opened it up. Anyone who is a committee member can ask Bjarne for a copy of Design and Evolution. So I'm assuming you send it to them as PDF. I went and looked. There are used copies available on Amazon. Depending on the quality, they're between $14 and $65.
Oh, wow.
But I had never really considered reading this, but apparently it won a couple of awards for software development and talking about the history and design of C++, and they all think it's really important to understand like why certain things are being rejected from the standard because it doesn't fit with the goals of C++. And I feel inspired to read this book myself now.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably a good read. Maybe they should update it.
Well, it probably doesn't need an update. It's
Maybe
like a history
not.
book.
Right.
But apparently it's not necessarily in print right now or something. Yeah.
Yeah. The one last thing I wanted to mention from Herb's pre-trip report is actually 2 things. One, it's not starting this week, but he's announcing that there's going to be a new study group on machine learning. And the graphics study group is coming back, but it's no longer going to be called the graphics study group. It's renamed to HMI and IO, which is human machine interface and IO. So there's a number of papers that are going to be discussed in that group. So graphics is not dead, but it might be completely different in this new or reborn study group.
Yeah, he said something specifically about that due to the number of people who are interested in it, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's good because, C++ does need something. It's just maybe that paper was not right.
Maybe it was right, and we'll find out later that it was right.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay, well, Devon, you've entered a few different careers before pursuing computer programming, and I wanted to ask what caused you to enter programming now, and why C++?
Well, I originally actually went to school for computer programming. I went to school, and everyone said I was good at math, and that's always the rumor of if you're good at math, you're going to be good at programming. So I don't know if that's completely true, but. So, I decided to go into programming, and when I first originally went, the director of the program, it was kind of hard to follow his teaching. I was going, and we were talking about flowcharts and pseudocode. Everything was paper and pencil, and it was all logic and design. And unfortunately, life events happened, and I just kind of got discouraged, and I left that program. I went through becoming a barber, which was fun, loved it. I went to law enforcement, didn't really work out, and it was wanting to help people because that's what I love to do. Became a personal trainer, loved that as well, but I just kept feeling like I was missing something, because I think I'm a person, I like to see results. I like to do things and see how exactly it happened and be able to see what it's doing. Right. So I decided, I'm gonna go back to school for I originally want to go to school for, and I always loved video games, and I wanted to learn how to design video games. So I went back and I met the new director. The new director, he was very intuitive and very encouraging, and I was just ecstatic of how he explained it, because he said the first day of our project on the logic and design, you're going to learn in your language how to do Hello World first day. I'm like, okay, cool. That's already kind of inspiring. I can learn how to code on the first day. I went in, learned how to do Hello World, and my instructors were all static, and they constantly made things relative where I can understand it. And, whether it's even a video game talking about, well, it usually deals with in databases and how information is transferred. So right in the first semester, I'm just ecstatic about, and I wanted to do C++ because I heard that was one of the biggest languages that people use for video games. Mm-hmm. So after going with that, I just, I decided to go from there, like I said, and then, that's pretty much where I am now. After, I had, like I said, my the director of the program was Joseph Seppielli, and Mr. Larry Hobbs. Like I said, they went over and beyond to help me understand. Especially me having ADHD, my mind is constantly all over the place. So sometimes it's hard for me to really settle down. And but they make it relative, and they constantly make it interesting where my focus doesn't leave off. So that's kind of how I came back to programming, which primarily in C++.
So how long have you been in school on the second go around now so far?
Since January of this year.
January. Okay. So that's, not terribly long, really.
No. Very short.
So what classes are you taking? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
No, go ahead, Rob. That's what I was going to say.
Okay. So what classes are you taking currently?
Well, right now, I'm actually taking MySQL, Android, IT Analysis, and Java 1. I've already taken C++ 1 and 2, and Project Logic and Design, and the intro to mobile apps. So, which is MySQL is kind of helping me a lot, dealing with databases, and, which is, I think, is going to be very important with any language, dealing with databases.
I'll just, as an aside, say that for basically every job I've had to deal with databases at some point or another, which is, from my perspective, ironic because I had the opportunity to take a databases class in college, and I decided not to because I had no interest in databases. And then I've used like 7 different database engines. So learn as much as you can because it'll probably keep coming up.
Yeah, which can actually lead to another one of my. If I could talk about some of the things that we do in Android right now, we're dealing with because Firebase is actually fairly new. It's everything through the cloud, so you do databases through the cloud. So there's no upfront cost of hardware. In our Android class, we're connecting with that and also making a project right now dealing with making a mobile apps for maintenance men, how they can log in and how they can and they can retrieve the information and have assigned jobs and addresses for them to go to. So that's a fun project that we're doing in Android of, learn to deal with databases and stuff.
And you said that's using Firebase as the backend?
Yes.
I've not used that myself.
It's pretty interesting. I know the Firebase, they have like a beta aspect of it, and it's all through Google. And like I said, through there, you can also, like I said, set it up, free account. They have, of course, free accounts for a certain amount of space, and it's NoSQL if that paints the picture of exactly what you're going to be dealing with. So it's a little different from MySQL, of course. Dealing with normalization, going from normalization to denormalization. Not denormalization, but NoSQL where there's no relation. But it's pretty interesting, like especially with you not having any upfront hardware needed. And it's real time, so that's the interesting thing.
That sounds extremely practical. I mean, what you're describing, a handheld application for people in the field. I mean, we see people using these all the time right now. Like the UPS guy dropping stuff off or whatever. It seems very relevant.
That's also what we're dealing with in the IT analysis class that we have. We're going through a business that started from going from working for somebody, going to business for himself. And when he's going in business for himself, he's trying to create his systems, his information systems and everything, to dealing with all the information coming in and going out. Because he went from picking up packages and delivering packages for like a local city. And he's trying to get all these packages from people because they want same day delivery. Because, you may need to send something in the same city from one place to another real time. Not real time, but same day delivery. And he just, so we have to assess the situation and do recommendations of how, what kind of systems need to be involved, and, what's the hardware aspect and the software, and, what would you recommend to him if you were his analysis and had to, guide him. So that's something we are doing in IT analysis as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So those are pretty good projects, to kind of, like you said, give us, real life situations of how we're going to be on the job.
Right. It sounds like the whole curriculum seems a lot more kind of like real world scenarios, giving you projects similar to what you would get out in the field, which is so different from when I went through school.
Yeah, they have great programs. Like I said, with the director, like I said, Joseph Seppielli of Augusta Technical College in Augusta, Georgia. He's phenomenal guy. Great director. I think I couldn't put a better person. Because, I'm not talking bad about any other schools. I'm just saying in general, like, I feel like we get a lot of practical information and practical use. Because a lot of times I know somebody that I've talked to and they're almost done with their bachelor's degree and they haven't touched an inch of coding. And they wouldn't know where to start, and I'm not putting them down, because a lot of times with the theories, it actually helps. I'm just saying for me, it worked out for me because, especially I lose, if I can't see something, it's kind of like I can't see the end game. I can't see what's going on. So for me to be at the first day, be able to touch some code and learn, and I'm ahead of the curve, and this is only a 2-year college that I'm getting all these informations, all this knowledge from, which is, is really, beneficial, because and most people want a bachelor's degree, but if you have an associate's and you be able to say, well, I know C++ programming, I know Java, I know MySQL, I know I have multi-platform, web design for mobile apps. I just think that, within 2 years, that's a lot of information to take in and say, I can build websites, So, their program is phenomenal. I looked online to see if there's a better offer and if there's any other schools that can offer that much information in a 2-year school, and I haven't seen it yet.
So it sounds very practical and very good, but with your interest in games programming, is there any part of it that you'll get exposed to games development as part of your education as well?
No, unfortunately, no. They're looking into that because they understand, the director understands that, a lot of people that come into programming are looking into some type of gaming or some type of, a lot of people are interested in it, but don't know where to go. And especially, if there's no schools or anything close by to really teach you, you're kind of like what I'm doing, going online, trying to outsource and figure out how to do it yourself. So I won't be able to be introduced to it, but that'll definitely be my search after this, of looking for a school where I can pursue that a little more. But I'm getting decent exposure for where I'm at now. I haven't been able to make anything super great right now, but to me it's all great because I'm able to, at least deal with 2-dimensional games. It's pretty cool at introduction, just online. Yeah.
So is it safe to assume that the Android stuff that you've been doing in your mobile class is Java? You mentioned Java also.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I feel like Java and C++ have such a different philosophy. I was wondering, as a new student, like, how much is that messing with your head going between those two?
If it was up to me, I'd put Java on a baseball and hit with a baseball bat. I think it is messing with me a little bit because now I'm getting impatient when I'm ready to get back to C++ now because, I'm not trying to bash Java, but I feel like maybe just because C++ is my first language that I feel like I understand it very thoroughly. And not thoroughly, I'm not I'm still early in it, but I feel like I can follow the flow a lot better. I feel like Java is just kind of bloated. I feel like there's like a lot of information for no reason. Even with Android, dealing with Android Studio, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I might need a counselor because they constantly have updates, and you can have a project that works, you update it, and then it crashes, and you're just like, oh God, like what am I? You have to go through it, and the compiler for me isn't really easy to follow when you have bugs and errors. It's just not that easy to follow. I feel like when I'm dealing with I only deal with Visual Studio with C++. So when and there I feel like I can follow my errors a lot easier than Android Studio, which is a nightmare.
I don't think any of our listeners are going to complain if you bash on Java a little bit. It's fine.
I can go on a rant for 15 minutes if you want.
You joined the C++ world at exactly the right moment, if I may, because, say, 5 years ago, our C++ errors were terrible from the compiler. But there's been an arms race between Clang and Visual Studio and GCC for everyone to get better and better errors. So it's a good time to be joining this world.
I haven't been able to follow like GCC and Clang. Are they fairly new? Did it kind of bring Visual Studio to kind of have a little more competition and kind of see how other things are done, and they can kind of try to work off each other almost? Because sometimes competition can kind of boost efficiency sometimes.
Right. So GCC and Microsoft's compiler in one form or another, Visual C++, have been around since the beginning, effectively, like the late 80s. And Clang only came into existence, maybe 6 or 7, 8 years ago, something like that.
Sounds about right.
And right out the gate, it had better errors than either Visual Studio or GCC. And it was the one that brought the competition. Everything had kind of stagnated to that point, and Clang was the one that made everyone else be like, oh, we can do this better? That's interesting. So,
yeah.
Sometimes the industry needs things like that,
yeah.
Give it a kick in the pants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you learning any other languages aside from C++ and Java?
No. I've learned a little bit of HTML and JavaScript, but not enough to really put me in front of a computer and say, build me something. But I mean, I've had a brief understanding of it, because in my mobile introduction class, we've had to deal with App Inventor with MIT, which is a lot of like plug and play type thing, but it's kind of really all logic. Then we had to deal with Java. Then we had to deal with Swift. We've had to deal with Xamarin. And we've had to do some things with HTML and JavaScript. I can't remember exactly how it related, but something we did with it to output a message. But it was all, like I said, once again, it's great exposure just for an introduction class. So,
but then that's in like 10 months. You've been exposed to all those.
Yes, sir. Like those things I was just telling you with the introduction to mobile app, that was only over the summertime. Wow. And that wasn't even that's like 10 weeks. So we didn't really so I mean, we got just a lot of introduction, and he did that because of there's different platforms. We have Android, we have Apple products, and then we have Windows Phone, which is not really relevant at this moment.
Yeah.
But he gets us introduced to all these things and how to design something for each one of these, so we can choose of which platform we would like to pursue. Because at our program right now, we have either Android, iOS, and we just have cross-platform web is something we just got. We're gonna, with this Xamarin and stuff like that we're gonna be getting classes for.
Okay. Rob, you've done Windows Mobile, huh?
Yeah, it's been a while since Windows Mobile development, and it's effectively dead now. But I did do some Windows Mobile in the past. Yeah. I wanted to interrupt this discussion for just a moment to bring you a word from our sponsors. Backtrace is a debugging platform that improves software quality, reliability, and support by bringing deep introspection and automation throughout the software error lifecycle. Spend less time debugging and reduce your mean time to resolution by using the first and only platform to combine symbolic debugging, error aggregation, and state analysis. At the time of error, Backtrace jumps into action, capturing detailed dumps of application and environmental state. Backtrace then performs automated analysis on process memory and executable code to classify errors and highlight important signals such as heap corruption, malware, and much more. This data is aggregated and archived in a centralized object store, providing your team a single system to investigate errors across your environments. Join industry leaders like Fastly, Message Systems, and AppNexus that use Backtrace to modernize their debugging infrastructure. It's free to try. minutes to set up, fully featured with no commitment necessary. Check them out at backtrace.io/CppCast. So you made it to CppCon this year. Was that your first? I'm assuming it's your first C++ conference that you've attended.
Yes. And it was exciting and overwhelming at the same time. It was just so much information. I mean, 15% of it I can follow. 85 was just a jaw dropper, so. But I mean, it was very interesting. I think the biggest thing about it is just seeing where the direction of the language. A lot of these things that I attended, they were talking about just the direction of the language, what I can expect, once I start working and I start progressing. At this moment, like I said, I'm only dealing with C++ 11. I haven't dabbled too much in the 14. So, so just seeing where we're going to be coming into C++ 20 and 17 and, just seeing some of the big names like yourselves and, Dr. Sustrup, it's just interesting, going, because honestly, I didn't hear about anything until I actually heard from your podcast. I was looking around trying to find, is there anything online where I can learn more C++? Because I was at the end of my C++ 2, which is my second semester, and I just wanted to know more. What am I going to do from here? Because, I'm not working in it. And I tuned into your podcast and I heard about all the information and all the names that you brought on. And so I started following your show and you started talking about the CppCon, and I was ecstatic about going there. And the funny thing is, able to bump into Mr. Jason Turner and trying to keep it together. I'm trying not to make myself sound like an idiot, but so I talked with him and it was interesting. I mean, I remember just when we went to one of the talks when he was talking about training other people, trying to train other workers at a business. And even though I'm not working at a business, I'm not training anybody, but just to hear that aspect of how trainers are looking to train, newcomers into the language. So, yeah, so the CppCon was very exciting. There's numerous things I was into like I said, I went to every single class, every single hour. So I was pretty busy because I just wanted as much information as possible. But towards the end of the last day, I was pretty exhausted.
Yeah, I think
go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was going to say, after that many days, it just starts. It goes in one ear and just kind of leaks out the other ear, basically.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific highlights from the conference?
Yeah, I'll say a broad and narrow aspect of my highlights. On the broad aspect was just learning what Dr. Brianna Shastrup was teaching about concepts, and with Dr. Shastrup and the committee members, just watching how a lot of the talks is always pushing for the direction of the language. I know I said that earlier, but to me it was just amazing just to see that, for one, it's just a community at the CppCon, and just seeing that, a lot of people from different realms are trying to, with the committee and stuff, pushing for a direction. A narrow aspect, I'll say templates and lambdas, because I've not learned that. I've not learned that in school. We had a brief understanding of it, but those are kind of gave me one of the biggest next steps to how I need to become a better C++ programmer, dealing with templates and lambdas. So that kind of gave me some insight of what I can do in my own language and how I can play with it, which is something I discussed with Mr. Turner as well about, talking with him about templates, which he's able to fortunately send something to me for that. And side effects, their presentation on how they rewrote their own version of C++ and how they put their own graphical effects together. To me, that was just, like I said, jaw-dropping, way over the head, but it was just kind of interesting watching how he put everything together. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he said they had to rewrite their own version of it. Do y'all remember anything from that talk if he said that?
I don't think I went to that talk.
Okay. And, yeah, sorry. No, that was the keynote, are you referring to?
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, the keynote, yes.
Yeah, no, I don't recall that part of it, but they had such a long history of that code that they had to do so much trying to keep up with everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. And then the funny thing was, I went to the SG14 meeting, and I thought it was about for some reason, I think I might have misread it, but I thought it was just strictly about video games. And I walked in there and I instantly realized after about 10 minutes, like, I think I chose the wrong class because I don't know what they're talking about. Like, but I mean, it was still interesting just seeing, you know, I still try to take some pictures and stuff like that just for something I can try to learn on my own, you know, just try to figure out later what they were talking about.
So did you spend the whole day in the SG14 meeting?
No, I realized early that after our first break, I got to go. So.
Yeah, it is an intense week for sure, and I've never been to one of those meetings even.
Yeah, me neither.
So do you have any
Go ahead.
recommendations for first-time attendees of CppCon, like yourself?
For me?
Yeah, if you were to recommend to someone else who's their first time attending CppCon next year, what would you recommend to them for having a good conference?
I would probably recommend, one, pacing yourself. You know, don't try to take in all the information at one time. I would say definitely stick with something that could be relatable, or maybe pick 2 or 3 things that you would really want to follow. And when you pick 2 or 3 things to follow, you know, stick with those points and try not to outsource too much. I say that because, you know, me trying to learn, you know, stuff about the video games, trying to learn about the packaging, and trying to learn about, Conan, and trying to learn, you know, all these different package managers, and I'm having an open ear to every single one of them. And so I learned like 4 or 5, but I didn't learn, but I heard 4 or 5 different package managers from being there. And so I'm getting all types of confused. I mean, you got to pace yourself. You know, that's what I would tell somebody. Pace yourself, pick 3 topics that maybe one is relatable, 2 things that you would want to actually learn more about, and stick to those. Don't try to go to everything like I did, because I was there from like 9 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So
so long days, yeah.
Very long days.
You went to the lightning talks too, I guess?
I went to a few of them. I think some of those were taking place at the same time with something else, I believe. So
okay.
Some of those times I didn't make it. But I wish I would actually went to more of those. But they were pretty fun. Never know. Maybe one day I might do more.
No, yeah, sure. I recommend it. Get out there, try to do a lightning talk on whatever is interesting to you. It's good practice.
Yeah.
So are you working on any C++ projects on your own? I know it sounds like you're very busy with coursework. I think you mentioned a game that you're working on in your free time.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I'm actually, working on a few games. I got one concept that I've not touched on, but that's really something that's going to be, once I get done with school, I'm going to have to put a lot more time on. But I'm working on like some small games, nothing too huge, just something that can, at least gain some recognition on. Just get some support at first, and from there, kind of build onto that. Just to get my first one out. Yeah, like I know with Android, once again, we some of our projects we make small games. Not nothing too crazy on the mobile apps as well. So the mobile app is something I would like to do later, as soon as I can learn how to do that in C++ on Android Studio. So
Android does not really encourage C++ from my experience. Like, it's definitely possible, but the documentation on it is kind of thin. They kind of just encourage you to do everything with Java. Yeah,
they have CMake support, which I don't know how to do CMake. so that's something I have to learn further. But they have ways that you can use C++, and I've been able to write C++ inside of Android Studio and got a message output. But when I started to try to, I got excited on the first one. After writing the message, I tried to continue, and I started having, little problems on how to call functions, and I kind of got lost. Like, okay, like how did they do that? So, like I said, there's not much documentation on it. I tried to read it, and I feel like I was just still looking at a wall. So, but if somehow I can figure out how to write everything in C++, I'll be very ecstatic. Even though it's good to know multiple languages, just to be, a little more broad aspect, because you never know when you might need to do something in another language. But by far, everything I've touched, I my C++ is definitely my language of choice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So any of these projects that you were talking about, do you have any website or GitHub or anything like that people might be interested in following along as you're experimenting and learning?
No, I think I should start one. I mean, I think that's a good point that I probably need to do a GitHub, like I said, just to have followers, just to kind of follow some of my work or something. But no, I have not gotten to that yet, especially like Rob was saying, I would really, once I have some more free time outside of school, I'd really like to get on some more projects with C++.
Yeah, definitely recommend starting your own GitHub if you have, and just throw whatever you have up there, whatever projects you're working on. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what type of career you're interested in after school?
Yes, I actually, it sounds a little far out, but I would really actually like to start my own business and make my own video games. That's something I really would like to do. I've always had a vision and wanting to start my own business. No matter what I've done, I've always wanted to think of a way, how can I start my own, and I've always had, the mind, I really want to do my own thing. So that's something I would really like to do. It sounds a little impractical, especially me being so early in it, but that's something I'm striving for. But if I had to get a job right now, though, I would like to, anything in the game development, I would really enjoy doing game development. And with that, what I was saying too, with starting my own business, that's why something I was kind of looking into, like Patreons, and there's something out here called Clubhouse, that actually they are based out of Augusta, Georgia, and they help individuals learn, innovate, and build. Is something that they have on the first thing on their website, and they kind of help people get started in their businesses. They help entrepreneurs, get their ideas down, and they fully fund entrepreneurs. And that's something I want to look into, because if there's like a way, I've heard that sometimes some people get Patreons in the middle of building their business. And if there's like a way that, I can get something like that while I build, my own video games and, do some projects, that'll definitely help me out.
Yeah, that could, definitely be helpful. I was just reminded of the author of Source Trail when we had him on. He was saying that he was initially funded by a small business grant loan for new research or whatever when he made that project, and here in Austria. So that kind of thing is definitely something to look into. I've never pursued it myself.
Yeah, it's very useful for people, like especially starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur these days, especially if you don't have too much direction. It's rough all by itself. And for some, like I said, for like Clubhouse, like they help you get started from the beginning, and they actually will fully fund you a place to stay and everything. From what I've heard. I don't know if you guys ever heard, they have a Georgia Cyber Center, where I'm at in Augusta, Georgia, and something they just put up, and, the Clubhouse is based out of there. So, and they're trying to bring a lot of technologies and stuff out there. And, they call it that, they have a lot of innovation rooms, a lot of different floors. And, like I said, I really want to get in touch with them and see what they can offer. Yeah, because, hey, if I can push the dream, and somebody can help me do it, especially, start getting into the, the laws of everything and trying to copyright and everything and trademark, which is all sticky. So.
Yeah, it sounds, really good. I'm not familiar with those kinds of things, but you'll definitely have to keep us up to date once you go down that road. If you've got some business you want the community to know about or whatever, send us a tweet or something.
Yeah, if you ever publish a game in the future, we would love to share it with all of our listeners.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I truly do.
Okay. Well, it's been great having you on the show today, Devon.
Yes, it was lovely to be here. I truly appreciate the opportunity from you, Rob and Jason. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to come on here.
It's great to have you on. Do you have like a Twitter handle or anything that you would like to let our listeners know about?
Okay, yes. It's @Labrie_Devon.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you so much again, Devon.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening in as we chat about C++. We'd love to hear what you think of the podcast. Please let us know if we're discussing the stuff you're interested in, or if you have a suggestion for a topic, we'd love to hear about that too. You can email all your thoughts to feedback@cppcast.com. We'd also appreciate if you can like CppCast on Facebook and follow CppCast on Twitter. You can also follow me at Rob W. Irving and Jason at Lefticus on Twitter. We'd also like to thank all our patrons who help support the show through Patreon. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/CppCast. And of course, you can find all that info and the show notes on the podcast website at CppCast.com. Theme music for this episode was provided by podcastthemes.com. Website at CppCast.com. Theme music for this episode was provided by podcastthemes.com.